Hey everyone, I'm Flo, Duties Behind the Camera, and we're all about simple food, simple faith. Today I'm going to show you how to make 3 of my favorite Chinese veggies. If you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe because it really does help the channel. These really are my favorite Chinese greens. So I have gailan, which is this one. This is a pretty big stalk actually. It's got a thick stalk with some really great dark leafy parts, and it's kind of like a Chinese broccoli. This is probably one that you're most familiar with. Then we have yao choy or choy sum, and that's these little ones, and they also grow quite big, but these are the size I got at the store. They are not like baby gailan. They're a completely different vegetable altogether. They're a little bit sweet and the stems are more tender than the gailan. And we have the bok choy, and this is Shanghai bok choy. These are slightly different from the regular bok choy that are white with the dark green leaves. We just like the texture of these better, and they come in this size and also like the little mini sizes, but we like this size best. To clean the vegetables, I usually soak them in salt water for about 3 to 5 minutes. I use about a teaspoon of salt for a bucket of water, and you can see that it just kind of loosens up some of the dirt and it kills any bugs that are in there. And you can, I don't know if you can tell, but there's some grit from the dirt that was in the veggies already. I'm gonna go back to the sink and run water in between the leaves to get out any more dirt, and then I'm gonna rinse it another time or so to get rid of as much, well, hopefully getting rid of all the dirt and bugs that may be hiding in the leaves. The bok choy is a little bit different. I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm gonna run water in between the leaves because you can't really run the water in between the leaves as it is, so we're gonna cut it down anyways to cook. When you're buying the gailan, you wanna make sure that at the bottom of the stalks that it looks fresh and that there isn't a white dot in the middle. When it's white, it means that it's starting to dry out in the middle of the stalk, and it means that the vegetable is a little bit older and it probably won't taste as good or be as tender. Another thing to look for is where the flower is, and if it's starting to bloom. First of all, if it's blooming, that's where the bugs are hiding, so you might want to just pick those pieces off. And sometimes it's still tender with a few flowers, but you don't want the whole flower to open up. Each of these buds will be like one little flower, so you can just pick them off. I'm just going to trim off the bottoms, and I'm going to leave them whole because my mom says when you cook them whole, they taste better. And since I'm keeping them whole, and the stalks are so thick, I'm just gonna cut right down the middle so that it gets cooked evenly when I throw it into the water. This is the choy sum, so same buying principle. If you're going to buy them, make sure that there's no dot. So this one has like a little bit of a dot here. So what we want to do is we're going to trim these ones, just trim off the bottom. And then the one with the dot, we're going to have to trim all of that white part off. Otherwise, it'll be not so great to chew through. Yeah, so I just cut off a little bit more. And we're gonna leave these ones whole. In my effort to clean them after I sliced them in half, some of the leaves came off, which is fine. I'm still gonna trim the bottom. And I'm going to cut it one more time because this will be really, it would take a long time to cook through this. So I'm just gonna cut these in half again. So into quarters, these bok choy. You may notice that in most of my home-style Chinese cooking that there isn't a lot of vegetables because we always had vegetables on the side. And it's because the greens are so easy to make and they're tasty and we don't need a lot of flavor with them because whatever meat dish we're serving for dinner also has a lot of flavor already. Now my mom used to make like 4 or 5 dishes along with like a daily soup that she would provide every meal for dinner. And there was always a plate of vegetables that were kind of plain on the side. So we're gonna start with a basic, look at how simple it is. So we're bringing a pot of water to boil. I'm just gonna put her on high. Adding about 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 tablespoon of oil, cooking oil, whatever cooking oil you're using. Even if you have like chicken fat or beef fat, whatever, you just need a little bit of fat in the water so that when the vegetables cook, it'll come out with that beautiful shine. Once your water is a rolling boil, I'm gonna add, we're starting with the choy sum. Just gonna add that, and it's going to take a minute. You can see that it's turned this beautiful dark green. If you leave it in too long, it will then turn yellow, and then that would not be good. So you want the stems to be slightly crispy still, and the green part dark green and beautiful. I'm using the same water to do the gailan. So again, 2 teaspoons of salt in your boiling water, plus a tablespoon of oil. I'm just gonna add a little bit more because as we pulled out the choy sum, the oil would have clinged on to the leaves of the choy sum. I'm also adding half a teaspoon of sugar. And the reason is for gailan, sometimes you might get like some bitterness with gailan. So if you add a little bit of sugar, it kind of protects you from that because you don't want to eat it if it's kind of bitter tasting. Well, you might just eat it anyways, but it's not a good meal to have. So I'm just going to cook the stems here to kind of lean them in the pot, and we're gonna cook the stems for about a minute. All right, so after the stems have been cooking for about a minute, I'm gonna push the green into the water and cook for another minute. All right, I'm just gonna turn off the stove and we'll pull these out. Whoa. And these are 2 giant stems. Obviously, I'm not cooking a full portion, what I would cook for the whole family. I usually cook about a pound of vegetables for a family of 4, and that's enough veggies for everyone. When I was a kid, I remember my mom used to heat up the oil on the side instead of putting it in the boiling water, and she would just fry up a piece of garlic, like a clove of garlic, and just let the garlic heat up in that oil, and then she would pour the sizzling oil over the vegetables. But then she started just adding the oil to the water, which is what I do now, which I don't need that garlic flavor. But you may be tempted to skip the oil part, and it really does make a difference. If you don't put any oil into your vegetables or to pour it on top, it will not have the right texture. It will feel dry in your mouth and it won't be very pleasant. With the bok choy, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to stir fry it with some garlic. Get the pan going, medium heat. And I'm just using a non-stick frying pan. Adding a tablespoon of cooking oil. I'm using avocado oil. And I chopped up about 1 clove of garlic. Just gonna add that, and I'm gonna stir fry that for about 30 seconds, just until it's fragrant. Okay, adding my bok choy. Cook this for about 30 seconds also. I'm going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of chicken bouillon. You can just add water, but I like the added flavor. And about a tablespoon of water. We're going to cover this and let it cook for a minute. right. Move this around. We don't want this to be overcooked either. Otherwise, the stems get mushy and it's just not a good texture. So it's better to be undercooked than overcooked. We'll just let this cook for another minute or so until it starts to feel fork tender. Turning off the heat. And you can do this with the other vegetables as well, not just bok choy. I just wanted to show you another method in cooking the vegetables that's still easy and tasty. Get this onto my plate. I'm just going to drizzle with about a teaspoon of soy sauce. And a little bit of sesame oil. And that is it. With the choy sum and the gailan, usually we just either serve it plain or we serve it with a little bit of oyster sauce on the side that you can just dip. Are you all ready for?
Dude, this is the taste. Nothing fancy here, guys. This is Chinese Veg 101 and a trip down nostalgia lane. As a kid, I'm sure I share the same story as a lot of Asian kids, a lot of Chinese kids that didn't like their vegetables. Like, why are we having to eat vegetables? And what do you got? Just some oyster sauce to complement the veg? That's it? Well, here we are decades later, and I would have to say, thanks, Mom, for getting that those veg habit tradition into our system, because now I love Chinese veg. It's like if we have Chinese food and we don't have Chinese veg, something's wrong. All right, let's start with the blanched veg, the choy sum. Flo cut up the veg. This is how we eat it. Just cut it down to more closer to bite-sized pieces, so you're not wrestling with a giant piece of veg. And I'm gonna start with the choy sum. I like the leafy parts. You know what, I'm equal opportunity, so I like both. Let's start with that. I'm gonna do a little dip, get a little bit of the stock, a little bit of the dip into the oyster sauce. Not a whole lot, just to give a little bit of flavor. And start with the leafy part first. Dependable, tasty, nice mouthfeel. Let's go with the stock. Maintains that crunch, but not raw, you know what I'm saying? And the rest of it is just get the hit of the oyster sauce. Very nice. Next, the gailan. This is one of my favorite pieces. Got a bit of the flour, but not floured, because it offers a different mouthfeel. And the stem, so we got everything in this one piece. A little bit of the leaf and the stalk that is, it's more tender than the giant stalk, which I personally don't prefer. All right, in one bite. Oh, get in there. Yeah, I don't get that bitterness. I don't know if I would have if you didn't put that sugar in there, but it's a nice, fresh, neutral taste. Let's move on. All right, moving on to the bok choy, the sauteed in garlic bok choy. A little bit of the accoutrement of soy sauce and sesame oil. Sesame oil, nice. All right. Cooked perfectly. I don't know if there's a al dente for veg, for Chinese veg, but it's got that nice bounce in there still, nice crunch. Nice give too, just that perfect balance. Those hints of soy sauce and sesame oil, perfect. Like it's nicely seasoned without being overpowering. So it's a great stir fry. Guys, you need to have more Chinese veg in your life.
Awesome, thanks, dude. Let me know what your favorite Chinese greens are. For these recipes, check it out on FLO'S.com.